Alright guys, so the next step is stylizing our content. Alright, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do our content. And let me see here one second. I'm going to create my content. So we're going to go into our style here. Like everything else, one of the things that I'm going to do is go into my content. I'm going to have a width and a height. I know I missed that in there, and I'm going to bring this down. My width is going to be 1366 pixels, and my height is going to be 518 pixels. 518 pixels. Now I have that in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to populate that with a color. I'm just going to drop a color in there. Color. Sorry, background color. And let me grab a color. Background. There we go. Too hard to read. Yeah, I got that. And let me bring my text a little bit larger. This better? Content. So now we have our content in there somewhere with 518. Let me see what happens. I don't see. Let me refresh this. Let me put this red. The reason why I'm going to test this out with the red. Oh, there it is. It's because it matches the same color as the content as I put into my hover. So let me change that color to this. That way I can see the difference from it. There we go, a little different. Now I can see my, of course now I matched the navigation, but that's okay. You can always go here to the color picker, guys, and select the color. There we go, a little different. Alright, so now the banner, one of the things I'm going to do with my banner is making sure that I know what's the width and the height. So same thing, I'm going to grab my banner. The width is going to be 1346 and the height is going to be 270. And let's change our colors here. Let's put a nice little gray tone. There you have that. The column wrapper, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to place it in there. That's going to be my column wrapper. My height is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be 218. And let me see here. Why is my column wrapper not showing? Column, why aren't you showing? And I always do this test with the red because red allows for me to see it. So trying to see where my column wrapper is. Come, I don't see my column. I want to make sure that I name it right. I don't think I did. Let me see how I spelled it. Column. I was missing an M in there. You see my M in there? So that's what I was missing. I want to make sure that I name it right. There we go. Now, we had some little spaces. I want a space between my banner and my column wrapper. So what I'm going to do is, remember, when you're using spaces, you want to push content away from each other. What you do is you do a margin, and I'm going to do a margin bottom. In the bottom, yep, I want to push that 10 pixels away from, you see now I got the nice little space in there. So now if you take a look at this is what you should have right now. I know I'm missing my two columns underneath in there. And I need to push my information down. I need some spacing around it. I need to add some margins just to kind of give some nice, the same spacing as my header. So I'm going to go to my content and I'm going to create a padding of 10 pixels. Remember, whenever you add padding, you got to make sure you subtract it here. So 1346. I'm going to use my friend, my calculator. 518 is 498 on the height. If you save it, now we should have nice spacing all around it. Okay. Now what we have left is basically our two left column, right column, and the footer. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a width and a height and a background color for them. Very simple. The width is going to be 668. And the height is going to be 218. I'm going to make it a lighter gray there so you can see it. 218, the same height. Let's make sure this guy floats to the left. And since the one on the right side is the same, basically what you do, just copy the left column rules, paste it to the right column, and change this to the right. Let's see what we have so far. There we go. That's what I was looking for. I can delete, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the background color for the column wrapper. You can delete it, or you can apply a comment here if you would like to. The way you apply a comment in CSS is you put the / asterisk, and you close it with an asterisk / and that creates a comment in CSS. You know what? Let's put a comment actually. Put here. Let's do this. This is a CSS comment. That way you guys know that that's a CSS comment for the future. Last but not least is my footer. And the way we're going to apply the footer is I want it to be the same size as my navigation. So you see here, I'm going to grab my navigation, just copy the width, the height, the background, everything that you have inside the navigation. Save your file. And you are done. We created the grid. We coded the HTML of it. Huh? I copy the same thing from the navigation, from the nav. Copy all those rules and paste it right in there. All those attributes in there. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit about positioning and stuff like that. There's something I want to show you. It's something called the flex box. Okay, kind of works similar to our floating. Okay, but the flex box basically what allows you to do, it consists on, it's a flex container. Let's say, for example, if I have a bunch of thumbnails, let's say in my left column, just to give you an idea, right? I have a bunch of little thumbnails in the left column, but I don't want to apply that floating left, floating right. So we use what we call a flex box. And the way it works is anything, any item that is applied to the flex box, that means they're always going to be next to each other. And so one of the things that I can do here, let's say, for example, I want to create a bunch of boxes inside of here, but I'm going to create it using my flex elements. So let's go ahead and one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div inside the left column content. So let's go into our source code where it says a left column. Let's get rid of the left column content. Okay, we're going to get rid of the left column content. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a div here. We're going to give it a class. And the class is going to be flex item. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to put this like item 1. Just to give you an idea, right? So we have flex item. You see here flex item right there. Then we have item 1. Let's do about I don't know. Let's do about 7 of them or something. This is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. 1 through 8. I added an extra one. All right, everyone with me so far? So we have this flex item in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside my style here. Go inside the style. And one of the things we're going to do to that left column here, this left column, is what we got to do inside of it, we got to throw what we call a display. And it's going to be there, it's going to say flex. Okay. Right now, you're going to notice everything gets lined up next to each other. You see that? Now, let's do something to this. Let's create our flex items in there. Let's put it's going to be a class. It was a flex item. Open and close. Let's create a width. 668. We can do. I think we can afford 50 pixels by 50 pixels. Is the new thing. No, I'm just joking. A height. And what I want to do is I want to have a margin of 5 pixels around them. Okay, so whenever they move around, and let's put a background of something. Let me make it magenta so you guys can see them. Save that. See all my little items in there? And what I can do, I can go back to my source code and take a look at this. I can copy all these little guys here. Copy and paste them and just rename them. 9, 10, 11. And then you have your 16 items and they go. But look what happens. They get distorted as I go. But they start filling in inside of your box. They get right next to each other. Now, some of the cool things that you have from the Flex. One thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to use in my left column, I'm going to use something called the WebKit. What was the WebKit? We used it one time.
So the page is the same on the browsers.
Yes. So what we're going to do is, basically, I forgot to put my display here. Display, WebKit, Flex. So it's just a render for different browsers and devices, right? So basically, it renders your content from your Orue. So if you're using Mac, whatever might be the case, you can actually view them without a problem. And then we can control this later on how to bring them down. But this will be another way to kind of make objects like flex items be controlled next to each other. Now, one of the cool features that you have is, let's say, for example, if we go back to, I'm going to comment out about 8 of them again. Now, a quick way to comment things out in Dreamweaver, if you guys highlight the line of code, on the left-hand side it says apply comment, and there's a little bubble, a speech bubble right about here. You can just comment that area that you want. Now, if you want to uncomment this, you can just highlight it. Right underneath says remove comment, and you can remove that specific comment. So it kind of saves you a little bit of time commenting as you're coding. So now I have these little guys in there. But take a look. By default, is from left to right. Right, my boxes come left to right. But if I go to my style inside the left column, I can put here direction, and I can put RTL. Any idea what RTL is? Right to left. From right to left. From right, I start on the right to the left. Right. It will be normal from left to right. Yeah. So it's something like if you guys want to design things like that, that you need to do something related to that, you can do it as well. Any questions? Concern? Sold. All right, so let's continue. One last thing I want to show you is a little bit about positioning. So one of the things I'm going to do is kind of go a little bit on applying. I'm just going to play a little bit with my footer for, let's say for example, if you always would like to have your footer, and next time when we come to the class we're going to talk more about positioning. We just run out of time right now, but let's say for example, if I always want my footer to be at the bottom of my browser, right? Right now we're locked. We're locked into this fixed size, right? There's 1366 by 768, right? But let's say, for example, I always want my footer, and you can do this with your navigation as well. If you always want your footer to be out, at the bottom, you can do it by positioning your element. But right now, let's say, for example, you see how my website is to the left. And if you guys would like to align it to the center of your browser, what you do, and this is why I like to work with my wrappers, you come over here right at the wrapper, and what you do is you do margin dash left, and you do auto, and then you do margin right auto.
But this only works if you have like an exact.
You have to have, yes, specific dimensions from left and right. See that? It's always going to, doesn't matter how you scale your browser, your page is going to be always in the middle of your browser. Now, talking about the footer, how can we position the footer at the bottom of the page? All right. One of the things we got to do is we got to remove the footer from inside that wrapper. Okay. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to come here into the source code. Okay. We're going to go inside the source code, and you see how my footer is inside my wrapper, correct? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my footer tag with the comment, and I'm just going to drag it at the bottom outside my wrapper. You see how it's outside the wrapper? My comments is here. This is my footer. So my footer is the last thing. When I save this, my footer is all the way over here. But what I want is I want my footer to be at the bottom and lock it at the bottom. So it doesn't matter where it is on my site. I want that footer always to be at the bottom of my browser. I'm going to go into my style. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the footer. So one of the things I want to do is I want to start by applying a position. And I'm going to use a fixed position. Fixed position. I want it to be from the left. I want it to be 0. And at the bottom, I want it to be 0 as well. So let's see what we have in there. Look at here. Now we have the footer stuck to the bottom. Now, let's make the width, instead of pixels, change it to 100%. That way, we start introducing the percentage in our class. Look at this. Mm-hmm.
So after I put 100%, my text disappeared. The footer content disappeared.
This information goes out. Is no longer there.
Wait 1 second. I put 11%. Alright.
And then what I'm going to do is let's change this to 75 pixels on the height.
So if we want to make the navigation go all the way across, like the footer.
Try it out. Just you know what? Let's do it. Let's bring the navigation instead of being up there. Let's drag it up there on the top. So what you do is go to your Dreamweaver. Let's find our navigation. Right here, the whole nav. Now take a look at this too, guys. Watch this. If I highlight my nav, I can group it too and start cleaning up my HTML. If my HTML page starts getting too long or too crazy or too cluttered, you can always have your always showing your comments inside of it. But that's another way. So I'm going to copy or cut my nav. It's going to be outside my wrapper. This is the first thing I want. It's going to be all the way on the top. No, always inside the body, but above the wrapper. And then we can go into our CSS, right into that nav. And this is why we did it this way, because we can change this to 100%. The height, let's make 75 if you want. And let's make the line height to 75 as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the position. And of course, just change some of those elements in there. So what I'm going to do here, find my navigation. Position fixed, left is 0, top is 0.
When you put 0 for left and top or left and bottom,
that means it's going to be 0. There's going to be no margins.
Why wouldn't you do that to the other side? You should probably just do the left.
Because by default, everything, you remember you have your page set up to 100%, so it's going to stretch all the way to the other end, ignoring all the margins all around it. Now, if you notice, my content underneath, my header and all that stuff is underneath my navigation, correct? So what we got to do is we're going to go into the wrapper. And remember, we had inside the nav, we had a height of 75. So what we can do on the wrapper, we can put a margin top of 75 pixels. And it will push that down.